gluten-free. Unless you haven't been to a grocery store in recent times, you have seen this label on countless food items. In fact, you've probably purchased or at least tried some of the products. Mintel, a research firm, last year identified gluten-free as one of the hottest new labeling claims, up there with all natural and kosher. Hello, I'm Jason Huffman, Editor-in-Chief of Food Chemical News. Welcome to the Knife and Fork Show. In case you don't know by now, gluten is a protein found in wheat, barley, and rye. It is used as a food additive in the form of a flavoring, stabilizing, or thickening agent, often identified as dextrin. Celiac disease is an illness that is believed to afflict as many as 3 million people in the United States. But it's not just people who suffer from celiac disease who buy gluten-free products. In fact, so many consumers are purchasing these products today that the gluten-free market is expected to surge to more than $12 billion per year in sales in the near future. But are there really any benefits for those who do not suffer from celiac to consume gluten-free products? And more importantly, what does it really mean to be gluten-free? We soon might have a definition from FDA. Here to talk about what is going on, I have Andrea Livario, Executive Director of the American Celiac Disease Alliance, and one of the foremost voices on the subject we are talking about. We also have Elizabeth Betty Campbell, a top food labeling expert with EA Consulting in Alexandria, Virginia. Betty was running the FDA labeling division when the agency first addressed this issue in the late 90s. Andrea, I'm going to start with you. Could you talk a little bit about what celiac disease is and the symptoms that people might experience?
Sure. Celiac disease is an autoimmune genetic condition. It affects about 1% of the population. When individuals have both the genes and combined with the environment, they trigger in different ways. An adult may have the flu, a cold, a car accident, and all of a sudden start having symptoms that range from severe joint pain, gastrointestinal distress, migraines, depression. It ranges the gamut. If you think of your small intestine as having little fingers in it like this, they're called villi. When someone who has celiac disease eats a product containing gluten, these villi fold up and essentially disappear. It's called villus atrophy. And the lack of these villi mean that the body is not able to absorb nutrients or minerals, and so they are essentially starving themselves to death. It is a disease of malabsorption. But the symptoms are so varied, and they mimic many other conditions. It could be anemia, as I said, it could be depression, it could be constipation, diarrhea. And so often when people go to the doctor, doctors see symptoms that look like something else and don't immediately think of celiac disease.
I see. I just learned recently there's a varying degree of sensitivity for people. There's gluten sensitivity. That's not necessarily celiac disease. So there are people who suffer from this who don't have the full-blown.
Right, you have to have the genes. It is a genetic condition, so you have to have the genes to have celiac disease. Gluten sensitivity are individuals who will react to consuming gluten, maybe feel bad, feel bloated. When they remove it from their diet, they feel better, and those individuals are classified as gluten sensitive. But even within celiac disease, there is a range of sensitivity levels, and some individuals react very quickly to consuming gluten, others need, and just a small amount, others need to consume more for them to have reactions that are problematic.
Why does it seem that only recently we just started talking about this? It doesn't seem like it's been that long.
Well, actually, it's been about a decade. In 2003, there was a landmark prevalence study that was published out of the University of Maryland Celiac Research Center that indicated that 1 in 133 Americans had celiac disease. Prior to that, the estimate was 1 in 5,000 or 1 in 10,000, but the numbers mirror that in Europe as well. And so after that initial study, more and more awareness has been brought by the celiac community, and there's been more training of physicians so that we're seeing it more and more. And there's been an explosion of the products on the marketplace, so it's becoming
drawing more attention to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, you've brought a lot of products here with you that declare to be gluten-free. Mm-hmm. I think there's some interesting examples. Coconut water.
Right.
100% coconut water.
Correct. Coconut water. One of the major concerns for the celiac community right now is the fact that there is no standard from FDA on gluten-free labeling, and so products that you would never expect to be labeled gluten-free are in fact bearing a label. So right here we have coconut water, which the last time I checked, coconuts aren't sprouting wheat, and it is labeled gluten-free on the side. Other products which individuals might not consider having gluten in it but often do. Chicken stocks frequently has wheat in it as a thickener, as Jason said earlier. And then there are other products like the gluten-free blueberry bars there that are new products to the market that have come about because of the need for patients with celiac disease.
One of the interesting trends that we've seen is that people who do not suffer from gluten sensitivity or celiac disease are buying products that say they're gluten-free, perceiving some kind of a health benefit.
Right.
Is there any health benefit for someone who does not suffer from either of these conditions?
Well, actually, the one thing about gluten-free products is in order to compensate for the lack of gluten, they tend to have more fat in them. And so they actually may be doing, if they're consuming gluten-free products in order to lose weight, they actually may gain weight because the products are have much more fat content in them. The other thing too is, unlike other wheat-based products like like bread is fortified, gluten-free products are not fortified, so they may also not be getting the nutrients that they would normally need because they're not in the products that are as they're manufactured.
Has it been your experience that products that are labeled gluten-free, some products labeled gluten-free, are not indeed gluten-free? Have you run across that at all?
We have run across that situation where products are labeled gluten-free when in fact they have a very high concentration of gluten in them, yes.
Yeah. One of the problems that we have right now is there is no real definition
Correct.
in the world of food regulation for gluten-free. But the FDA is doing something about that, correct?
Yes, yes.
What's up at the FDA?
Well, FDA proposed in 2007 because they were mandated by the Food Allergen Labeling and Protection Act, FALCPA, to define gluten-free, because until that time there had been no guidance on what gluten-free was. In 2007, FDA proposed a definition, and since that time, the industry has at least had something to guide it as to, for those companies that are trying to do it right, there is a guidance, there is a means of determining that your product is gluten-free and that the claim is not misleading. And FDA had encouraged people to rely on that proposal. That was in 2007. And the basis for that definition was, there are other provisions, but an analytical limit of 20 parts per million. And in 2011, FDA published opened comment again on that proposal, reopened the proposal, and said they had done a health assessment and asked for comment on whether they should use a health-based figure for the definition of gluten-free. Now, as one might expect, that health-based level is much lower than 20 parts per million. And so now FDA, from that 2011 position, was seeking comments and is preparing a final rule to decide just what should be the definition of gluten-free.
20 parts per million is also the Codex standard, is it not?
It's the Codex standard, it's the EU standard, and it's the Canadian standard.
Okay. Widely accepted in other parts of the world.
Widely accepted in other parts of the world, yes.
The exciting news about this particular issue is that we heard that the White House Office of Management and Budget has got another regulation delivered to it, a final rule from FDA.
Right.
Now, getting to the White House doesn't necessarily mean it's going to show up in the Federal Register tomorrow. We know that from FSMA. But you must be excited about this.
We're very excited. It's been a long time coming, having the rule work its way through the process and finally getting to this, final stage. We hope that OMB will complete action on this rule within the 90-day limit that they have proposed for the rules that go over there. So,
and you're okay with the 20 parts per million threshold?
We are, absolutely.
What concerns do you have about the final rule? What may or may not be in there?
I think for the community, the concerns about the final rule will be education. Just how do we educate individuals about what the standard is and what the industry will be doing to meet the standard. So that will be one of the big issues. The other will be is how far will it go? Will this go beyond food products that are regulated by FDA, and will it extend to restaurants as well?
Why is this particular measure important to the community?
For celiac disease, the only course of treatment for this condition is the medically prescribed gluten-free diet. So without clear labeling, individuals have problems understanding, is this product actually safe for me or not? And they don't know if gluten-free on one product means the same thing as gluten-free on another product. So, and it's a misperception that people are following the diet because it's healthier, or many people are following it because it's trendy. But for these individuals, think of it as a person who has type 1 diabetes and has to take insulin. This is the same thing in terms of, this is their insulin in terms of their medical treatment. So people need to understand that it is their life that depends on these labeling.
Okay. Betty, the industry wants this, correct?
The industry wants, yes, they want a definition for gluten-free.
Why would this be good for the industry?
Well, so that they have something reliable, something they can rely on as a basis for their claim. And in addition now, with the Food Safety Modernization Act, there is imposed upon industry a need to control any problems. And while gluten is not officially an allergen, the wheat that is a main source of gluten is. And so the need for the gluten manufacturers, gluten-free manufacturers, is for the label definition so that they can adhere to that with confidence. Right. If they adhere to that. There is a general rule, though, under the Food Safety Act that they will need to control.
Okay. Well, that's it. Out of time again. I guess my staff at Food Chemical News will just have to watch now and see what the FDA puts out there on gluten-free labels if it doesn't happen before we air this interview. Thanks to Andrea Lavario and Betty Campbell for appearing on the Knife and Fork Show. Although we'll say goodbye to Andrea for now, Betty isn't going anywhere. When we come back, the two of us and two other guests are going to talk about some other issues related to food allergens.